So above my head, you see the heavens. And sadly, the heavens now contain Olivia Newton John, who passed away this week after a long battle with breast cancer. And for anyone my age, especially guys, I'm 60, we grew up loving Olivia Newton John. And we may have grown out of her music by the end of the 70s, but she'd already established herself as a film star with much more talent than just singing. Grease and Xanadu. And in this wonderful interview from Arts and Entertainment, she recounts basically her entire career, starting with the Sing 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 talent show in Australia, hosted by their Elvis Presley, Johnny O'Keefe, that she won. And it got her over to England, and her career took off from there. And her cover of Bob Dylan's If Not For You was reluctantly done by her. She fancied herself a power balladeer. And thankfully, as she states in the interview, her manager was on the right track. So, hope you're enjoying your time in heaven as much as we enjoyed your time on earth, Olivia. Thank you. God, I got choked up.
Welcome back to Breakfast with the Arts. In her music, we found magic. During the 70s and 80s, we honestly loved her. And through the years, we've become hopelessly devoted. There's only one singer who fits that bill, and it's, of course, Olivia Newton John. With 10 #1 hits and a starring role in the biggest movie musical ever, Grease, you might think Newton John would just want to sit back and relax. Well, that's what she's doing with her latest release, Grace and Gratitude. It's an album dedicated to calming our minds, lifting our spirits, and reveling in the healing power of music. Now, Olivia tells us, in her own words, how she went from getting physical to a whole other level of mellow.
My mother tells me that since I was a little girl, I always sang, and I would sing along with everything. I'd sing harmonies to everything. I don't know if I wanted to be a singer. It just kind of fell into place that I should be one, because that's what I did. I started, and her husband, Jeff Wald, at the time they were married, played a very interesting role in my life, actually, in two ways. Helen was, she was an Australian. She'd had a huge hit with Iron Woman and Delta Dawn and quite a few other songs. And I'd been to see her in concert in Florida. I think I was there doing some promotion. And she said to me, if you want to be successful in America, you need to move here. You need to be available. I stayed friends with them, moved to Los Angeles, and they invited me to a dinner party one night. And they said that Alan Carr was going to be there, and Alan Carr was looking to cast a movie, and it was going to be of a show called Grease. Now, I had never seen Grease. I knew a little bit about it, but I'd never seen it. It was just a stage show at the time. So I went to dinner there, and I sat opposite Alan, and we had a nice evening, and he said to me something like he thought that I'd be perfect for Sandy, and I should go see the show. And I think I was heading for England at that time. So I went to see the show, and Richard Gere was playing Danny Zuko. Loved the show, thought it was great, but kind of was scared because I'd made the movie Tomorrow in London in the 60s. I thought Tomorrow was a disaster. John Kirshner, who put the Monkees together, and Harry Saltzman, who did the James Bond movies, put their heads together and came up with this idea that they'd put a group together and make a series of movies like the Bond films, put this group in different adventure situations. So they were forming a group. It's one of those man-made groups, like the Archies were, like the Monkees were. So they asked me to be the girl next door, and we made a movie, and it was a science fiction musical. And it was like it sounds. So I thought, I don't want to make another movie. What if it's terrible? And Jeff Wald came after me. Apparently I was on the road, and he came to see me. I was in New York, and he said, you really should consider this. It could be really good for you, I said, well, I don't know anyway. So I read it again, and I said, look, I'll consider doing it, but I'd like to do a screen test. Could I do a screen test with the guy you're thinking of for Danny? Because I want to see that, first of all, I'm all of 29. How can I play 18? And I don't want to be in a disaster. So we did a screen test, John and I, and it was great, and our chemistry was amazing, and I did it. Grease and the whole hoopla that went with it, we couldn't have imagined that it was going to have that kind of reaction. When we went to the premiere in Los Angeles, John and I rolled up in an open red old car, and it was chaos. I mean, there were thousands of people screaming, and the movie hadn't even opened, but there was so much excitement around it. And I think John's movie, Saturday Night Fever, had come out, but when we were making the movie, it hadn't, so I didn't have any nerves about working with him because he wasn't yet the big star. Probably if that had come out first, that would have been intimidating as well, but it was a very exciting time.
When we come back, Olivia Newton John talks about her film Xanadu, her biggest hit Physical, and why her life now is filled with grace and gratitude when Breakfast with the Arts returns. Welcome back to Breakfast with the Arts. Here again, Olivia Newton John.
Xanadu was an interesting experience because I wanted to make a musical again because Grease had been so successful. Couldn't find a script that I really liked, but loved the idea of ELO doing the music and John Farrar, who'd written my hit songs for Grease, Hope So Devoted, New One That I Want, doing the music for this. And it was a vague idea of a muse and all this thing, and I jumped into it kind of before the script was properly polished. So I think the script falls down, but I think it makes up for it because the music and the dancing is so fantastic. And Gene Kelly, I mean, I've danced with two of the greatest dancers, Gene Kelly and John Travolta. I'm a very lucky person. Physical was another challenging time in my life. Again, reluctance. Here I was, I had this great song. I knew it was a great song. My manager brought it to me, and Stevie Kipner, who's another Australian friend of mine, had written the song. And I knew it was a hit, but the minute it was ready to go, I kind of panicked because it was so cheeky, and I called my manager and said, Roger, we can't release this. I'm really, a little insecure about it. And he said, it's too late. It's gone out, And then I watched it just go, to #1 and stayed there for like 10 weeks. And I was still kind of anxious about, I'd had this kind of girl next door image, and here I was doing, for me, raunchy. It wasn't, compared to now, it's like a lullaby, but then it was really raunchy. So I said, we need to do a video that kind of goes against the lyrics, so we should do something with exercise. So hence the headband and the outfits, which became another trend, but it all came out of kind of fear that the other thing was too out there. When I started out singing in the 70s, the late 60s and the 70s, they planned on building a career with you. I mean, they'd put out an album and they would think, well, if this one doesn't work, maybe the second or third one. Now, they put these poor young people, if their first album doesn't fly, they're dropped by the label. I mean, it's incredible pressure. I was very fortunate in my career that I've had wonderful songwriters around me, particularly in the beginning. John Farrar and Stevie Kipner probably wrote my biggest hits, and they were great writers. So now more artists write their own songs, but at that time I wasn't really writing very often, and luckily I didn't because I got great songs out of it. Grace and Gratitude is something I've wanted to do for a long time, but couldn't really get there. In 1992, I went through breast cancer and I wrote an album called Gaia, which is probably the closest to this record that I've ever been, and there's been 14 years in between. But Gaia was really personal. I wrote every song. It was kind of one of those, literally woke up in the middle of the night with the songs in my head, had to put them down. Didn't intend to them to be an album, actually. I thought that I was just going to retire at that time. But my soul always drove me to sing. Music has always been healing for me, and writing is very cathartic, and I found myself drawn to want to record an album of healing music.
One of Olivia Newton John's primary focuses these days is raising money for breast cancer education, support, research, and treatment. Her CD, Grace and Gratitude, is part of a bigger package promoting breast health being sold exclusively in conjunction with Walgreens. New music from Toby Lightman when Breakfast with the Arts continues. Don't go away.
Thank you for watching Cleveland Live Music. I can't play a lick. That's why I'm a taper. Thanks for watching the channel and making it grow. If you want to subscribe, that'd be appreciated. Patreon and GoFundMe would be appreciated. Maybe I could get guitar lessons.